Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I welcome you to the 6th African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable. I am one of your hosts. I am Lady Be Blessed, the Executive Director of the Lady Be Blessed Humanitarian Foundation, a nonprofit, a non-governmental organization that actively and effectively engage in promoting human and social welfare with no prejudice against human suffering on the grounds of gender, sexual orientation, religion, or national divisions. We believe strongly that supporting and implementing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals will provide a better world for the future generation. In 2018, the Bright Light Project and the Lady Be Blessed Humanitarian Foundation started the African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable discussions, not only to give youths a voice, but also to give them a seat at the table. Today, right now, almost 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25, making Africa the world's youngest continent. African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable is a platform for young African entrepreneurs, change makers, and community leaders to network, share knowledge, opportunities, and collaborate on key economic and social issues that drives the local action towards achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, especially in Africa. Our aim is to engage embassies, African diplomatic missions, and the African Union with a position paper on the need to invest in Africa's young youth population, because they are the cornerstone for economic transformation of the continent. Africa's biggest youthful population is both a potential challenge, but also a great opportunity for enhancing the continent's social economic transformation and development. Today, we are proud to be part of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa 8th Africa Region Forum on Sustainable Development. We are an official side event. Our theme, Building Forward Better, localizing the SDGs, will today be discussed by our youth panelists. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce my co-host, Frank Bonghan. Franco, take the lead.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Thank you so much, Lady Be Blessed. 2018 seems like yesterday. And if we're celebrating today on this platform as part of the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development, the 8th session, which we'll be holding in Kigali, jointly organized by the government of Rwanda and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. So welcome to this official site event. From Abuja to Ouagadougou, from Yaoundé to Nairobi, from Lusaka to Cape Town, from Windhoek to Libreville. I welcome all of you to this live session of the African Youths and Sustainable Development Roundtable. At this point, I will move ahead. We have gathered the best speakers on the globe. And Lady B, it really fills my heart that this distinguished and most admired ladies and gentlemen have taken the time to be with us today on this 6th edition. So we are so happy and so happy to have you guys. I'm going to move forward. To introduce our distinguished panelists, and from there we'll move right away into our discussions. Our theme how do we build back better from the coronavirus pandemic? How do we localize the SDGs? You know, sometimes it is often said, you know, people in the developing world, they read the SDGs on the books, they see it on TV, and sometimes they are engaged with the SDGs, but they just don't know how is it they are contributing towards this global initiative by the United Nations that was launched in 2015. I'll start with a panelist all the way from Accra, Ghana. I introduce to you Mr. Aaron Lawson. Mr. Aaron Lawson is a development management practitioner, educator, and youth development specialist with so many years of experience. Working in the developmental sector, education, project management. He is very passionate about youth development, and that's why we have him on this forum. Advocacy and community engagement. Mr. Lawson, all the way from Accra, Ghana, we welcome you to this platform. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be part of this. This is my first time, and I can see a lot of energy here. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Next will be our most reputable repeat panelist in the person of Yetormah Betty Fo. Betty, you know, it's always a pleasure having you here. Betty, it brings a unique perspective, an African diasporan who is very passionate about local action in the continent from Charlotte, North Carolina. She's an education specialist, passionate about continuous quality improvement and sustainable development for both the global and rural communities. She has a sincere interest in global health equity, and that's why we have her on this forum, because there's no way we can talk about building back better if we do not talk about health, which is SDG 3. So please, and she's also the founder of Project Genesis. Miss Betty, it's our most esteemed pleasure to have you on this platform. How are you feeling today?
I'm well. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Next, it's Mr. Sunnex Itah, all the way from Lagos in Nigeria. Mr. Itah is the CEO of Itah Africa Craft Vocations. They focus on reducing youth unemployment and creating job opportunities through handmade crafts. Very interesting, because if the youth in Africa don't take the responsibility, if they do not own their own destiny, we would never develop. So this is very important. Itah Art Aircraft Vocations was founded in 2016, actually involved in nation building through Craftsman's campaign. Very important. They teach different handmade crafts, such as shoemaking, bags, beddings, and a whole lot of other stuff. Mr. Itah, it's our most pleasure to have you for the first time on the African Youth and Sustainable Development platform. How are you feeling today, sir? You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. Great to be here. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and thank you very much for having me. It feels cool to be on this panel.
Wonderful, wonderful. We often say in order for the SDGs to succeed, one of the most important SDGs is to realize that collaboration is the new competition, SDG 17. We are blessed to have two most renowned daughter and a son of Africa who are so passionate about changing the narrative through practical actions on the ground. I present to you Mr. Melvin Wajiri, who's the CEO of People Empowering People Africa. The mission of People Empowering Africa: empower youths with life skills and provide them with the necessary tools to create positive change by changing youth-led initiative with a genuine interest in social transformation. There is no other partner that we would have on this platform today, if not of Mr. Mervyn Wajiri. Mr. Mervyn, you are most welcome. How are you feeling today?
I'm excited and I look forward to have a nice deliberation with other colleagues from around the globe. I mean, it's just amazing to have people gather to discuss about the SDGs again. I appreciate it and I look forward to that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mervyn. Thank you so much. Next, Dr. O, we call her Dr. O. Dr. Oyin Kansola Jinadu, very vibrant, very articulate lady. She's the Executive Director of Honey Drops Foundation. She's a philanthropist, public speaker, educator, entrepreneur, and a mother of 3 boys. Very passionate about SDG 5 and her work and contributions towards elevating the plight of the girl child in Africa, because we say any development that does not take into context the plight of our young girls, that development will never go anywhere. Dr. O, there's no way we would have you anywhere else on planet globe than have you on this platform. You are most welcome.
I didn't realize I was muted out. Thank you so much, Mr. Franco. You're so wonderful. That was a great introduction. I'm so glad to be here. Welcome all the other panelists, and I look forward to a wonderful deliberation today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. O. We're going to dive straight into question number 1. So
Thank
we
you
will have
so much.
so we will have questions for the panelists, and then we'll give time for our 2 speakers who bring them in at certain times. They can give, they can give their keynotes, and then from there, they too will stay around because the panel will probably have some questions. And Lady B, please, if you can help us on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. I know last time we had a lot of questions on Facebook that were not answered. Sometimes, so please be tapping through Facebook so we can also have our panelists take some of the questions from Facebook. And you're joining us. We're live at the 6th edition of the African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable. I'll move to question number 1.
Thank you, Franco. Appreciate that. I am monitoring Facebook. So if you are viewing us on Facebook, feel free to leave your questions in the comment box, and we will definitely review them here and address them to the panelists. My question number 1 for each of the panelists, and we are going to give each panelist about 3 to 4 minutes to answer each question so we get a robust conversation going. So question number 1, while the SDGs are global, yes, we know, the achievement will depend on the ability to make them a reality in our cities and our own communities. This is what localizing the SDGs mean. The pandemic has pushed back the progress of the SDGs to at least 15 years. We know some have even been pushed back to 20 years as far as education is going in some developing countries. But what is your opinion, and what could be the best way in building back better, building forward better, in your opinion? And I'm going to go to Ghana for this one because you're on the ground, you're in Ghana, and give me your opinion on that question number 1. And that would be Aaron.
Yeah,
everyone has to unmute themselves. When you're not speaking, you will be muted. I will mute you. And so when your name or call or you're speaking, please unmute yourself. Go ahead, Aaron. Thank you. Aaron, you have to unmute yourself. Aaron, you're muted.
Aaron, can you unmute yourself?
All right, sorry, I thought it was...
Wonderful.
Yeah, so the first and most important thing we need to do is to do a proper review of the existing progress or status of what we've done in the past, in order to put us in context to see where exactly there are lapses. Then after doing the review, then we can then prioritize which areas are very essential in terms of aggressive implementation that we need to do. So for instance, if you look at the various targets and the various goals, where do we have lapses? Where do we have challenges in terms of a delay in implementation among the sub-regions and among the global perspective? Once you're able to do a proper assessment, then we can look at how best we can approach it. And that should be done with certain data available. The second aspect is to also inject some resources because in some countries, the implementation is quite slow because there's challenges in terms of financial capacity to be able to provide resources that are needed for the implementation. So in Ghana, for instance, some of the SDGs regards to, let's say, quality education, we have challenges in certain areas compared to other areas. And if you look at the data available, one of the key problems is enough resources instead of financial resources to be able to implement them in a local level. So resources must be available, and those resources must be prioritized in terms of needs assessment, because you can't just prioritize without identifying the local needs of the people in which these targets are supposed to benefit. So one is to do a review to assess the gaps. Two is to inject capital resources. And the three is to also effectively prioritize in terms of which targets or which goals are of great necessity in terms of the challenges in those communities. Because you cannot implement the development agenda without identifying the key needs of the people that the agenda is supposed to benefit. So these are the three things I have in mind in terms of the way forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. That was great perspective, Aaron. Great perspective, Lady B.
Thank you, Aaron, so much. We appreciate your answer. We're going to get some more views on that and then come back and have a discussion. So we come back to the diaspora here because we know the SDG in Africa implementation is different than here in the diaspora. We cannot expect Africa to have the same problems here as New York or California or, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina. So we'll ask Betty now to go. If you need me to repeat question 1, I will, but I know that you're on the ball.
Thank you. So as it relates to recovery from COVID,
Unmute, Betty.
Can you hear me now? I'm unmuted now. So,
yes, correct.
As it relates to COVID and COVID recovery, I think one of the things that was highlighted significantly were the health inequities by the social determinants of health. So when we look at that, we break that down into 5 components: your economics, your healthcare access, social and community context, education. And one of the largest things that we saw was that access to healthcare. When we look at the relative geographic layout of Charlotte, there are strategic positions where there are healthcare, clinics and ways to achieve and optimize healthcare. But what you don't realize is that a lot of people are disfranchised from that. And so it is really going into the grassroots for recovery and understanding what are the significant barriers to access to health? What are the significant barriers to access to economic stability? Assessing those and reiterating how we can adapt to address those. I think a lot of times when we're talking about COVID recovery, what we're talking about is putting a Band-Aid and not really getting to the root cause. The root cause of why COVID has set back the SDGs by 15, 20, 30 years now is because we have never truly addressed what our barriers to care are, what our hindrances are to actually have a well and stable society. If you're looking at Africa, one of the best things that came out of COVID was it highlighted the resiliencies of Africans, especially from my home place, Sierra Leone. One of the things that the common theme was, there is no COVID, because they are already suffering from these social determinants of health, access to care, transportation, technology, that they are so limited that they have to think of other resources. And really assessing why these issues are, that's how we're going to be able to recover from COVID.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. COVID brought in the forefront what was wrong with some societies and what was right in other societies. So definitely I appreciate your feedback. Now let's go back to the continent. Let's move to Nigeria and see what's going on there on the ground as far as building back better. Sunnex, please unmute your mic. The floor is yours.
All right. Once again, thank you very much, Lady B, Franco, and the other panelists. Now, for me, when you talk about the harm or the how COVID did and how it has affected, the way things are right now. But for now, let's say, for instance, unemployment, which is a major problem in Nigeria. Okay, let me start from home.
Right.
But for now, people weren't, hunger was on the high side in the country, and politicians, they keep embezzling money. We keep hearing different budgets for different things. And we don't see these things being implemented. Like, we don't see these projects they are awarding, and money is being spent on these things. And now the country, they're owing a lot of money from different international bodies and all that. You understand? So when COVID came, it was more like it added fire to, the danger that was on ground already. You understand? So to me, what I would say is now COVID is done its own and we are out of it gradually and people are getting back to work. A lot of people lost jobs, families, they were going through a lot. So I tell people, one of the things we can do right now is we got to create job opportunities for ourselves, okay? We cannot rely on the government totally. I mean, the Nigerian government, if you ask me, I'll tell you, they've never done what they're supposed to do. But then again, we're not going to say, okay, since they're not doing enough, then we should just fold our arms and keep looking at them. In our only two ways, we're going to try all we can to make sure that things are going to be all right for us. Wow. Do you understand? So every young person I come across in my world, I tell them, if at all you have a job you're doing, you got to learn a skill. You got to do something with your hands. Yeah. Now, people understand the importance of learning a skill. I'm not saying you must do leather crafts or make shoes and all that, but there are different other things you can do. Little things as cooking. Food selling is big business in Nigeria. We like to eat in Nigeria. And I mean, if you don't eat, you're not going to be healthy to work, okay? And if you eat, that's when you can, be productive. So these are some of the things I think our people should focus on. COVID is done a lot, like I said before, but then again, let's keep hoping and praying for the government. But at the same time, we have a larger responsibility to focus on by we learning a skill, and in our little way, we can make a lot with our hands. Very, very important. These are some of the things I think, we should focus on. Job creation, which is better than we being job seekers. Let's create jobs for ourselves. And one of the ways we can do that is with our hands. There are short skills you can learn in a very short time. So you don't need to, be fixed in a shop or in a vocational center for maybe 6 years like it used to be back then. Now things have changed. You can learn a lot on the internet. You can learn a lot even staying in your room. You understand? So these are some of the things I think we should be focusing on, moving on from, COVID drama, and then in line with the SDGs from now onward.
Wow, let me chime in a little bit, Mr. Sunnex. Wonderful perspective. Let it be, and the other panelists and our speakers, you agree with me that a greater part of the youth unemployment problem in Africa is structural. It's structural unemployment. Our youths too in Africa, my experience, they do not want to dirty their hands. Okay, they don't want to take initiative. They just want to sit back, and morning, and afternoon, and night, all they talk about government.
Yes,
There's a lack of personal initiative. I just want to bring that perspective.
Also, Franco, that's a learned behavior. This is something that's been embedded in them from years to years to years. It's a learned behavior. Right. So when you grow a nation a certain way, they will always be that way until you come and cut off. You change the environment, change the mindset.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're not teaching self-reliance in the schools. They're not teaching entrepreneurship in the schools. They're not teaching financial literacy in the school. So it's a dependency. It's what I could gain, not what I could create. Exactly. And that is where we need to go forward. We need to go forward. What can I create? right?
Exactly.
How can I use my skill to create jobs, to create skills for people, right?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, but that behavior is learned. So as we go forward, we cut that behavior, we change the environment, we change the mindset, we could build back better.
Lady B, I think Betty has a hand up. Betty, go ahead.
Go ahead, Betty.
Yeah, so one of the things that it's a learned behavior, and of course, behavior modification takes a while to do, especially in a country, you know. One of the things that I realized with youth and as a millennial myself is that there are also glass ceilings. When we have some of our government leaders who have been in place for 50, 30 years, you do feel like you can just sit back, because what change can you make? As a change agent, how do you go out and promote that? How do you promote entrepreneurship when there are so many barriers and barricades? So I think that it's a catch-22. You know, we have government affiliates who are, you know, well beyond the age of retirement, who are well beyond the age. And of course, you know, we learn from history, we learn from our past, but we also have change agents and millennials and youth who are passionate and ready to work and ready to do it. But then they encounter such barriers, such as glass ceilings. For instance, you are going to apply for a job. You just graduated. You just got a technical license, and they say you have to have 5 years of experience. Well, how do I gain those 5 years experience if no one will give me the opportunity? Because some of them aren't retiring. Some of them are just reinventing themselves and coming back, you know, but the same old tools to solve a situation. So I see both sides of the party where youth can be very laissez-faire, you know, and then I can also see where they are engaged and they're ready to make change, but who is going to open that door? Who is really going to empower youth to really push and drive and open that door and actually listen? And that's a big thing that I find a challenge in the work that we do, is that who is really listening?
Yeah, and Betty, great perspective, because no matter the effort from the youth, no matter the effort from the builders ecosystem, the government needs to create the enabling environment through which these great ideas can thrive. But how can they even thrive when we still have people who are 80, 90 years in power? Good perspective. Dr. O, your hand is up. Let's hear from Dr. O before we
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Franco. Betty, great perspective. But this is what I always say, right? At the end of the day, you can never control what is happening in someone else's house. You can only always control what happens in your house. And that is why we have to take personal responsibility. We want to talk about the glass ceilings. We want to talk about the limitations. But if we as a society, globally, locally, internationally, continue to focus on the limitations that hold us back, those are the things that we're going to continue to see it become more prevalent in our existence. So here's where I want to pitch in. I believe in providing real-time adaptable solutions to every problem, because for every problem, there is a solution. We need to begin to focus on education. I am an educator. I firmly believe in the power of education in changing the mindset of a person. And I tell you this, nothing ever will stand against the will of a man who is determined to succeed in life. And if we begin to train and retrain, not just our youth, because my very first book titled Breaking the Cycle, Living Beyond the Norms, Breaking the Cycle from the Bottom Up, focuses on educating our youth to help them to break these cycles of limitation that we talk about, the things that society has turned around, the abnormal norms that we have suddenly, subliminally, over years and decades, subliminally conditioned ourselves to believe as the norm. We need to find time to now begin to gradually shift that perspective back to where we can begin to see that wrong is actually wrong and right is right. And we can begin to see that every solution that we need to succeed as humans in any society lies within us. Just like Mr. Sunnex said, everyone investing in learning a skill. We all have gifts, right? But if we learn an acquired skill, it enhances those gifts and allows us to be productive and offer solutions that makes our society better. So for me, I don't like to focus on our limitations. I want us to focus on what can we do to move the needle forward against every odds that is working against us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that is why this roundtable discussion is so important. This is why we are here. We are here to discuss, and not only that, bring the solution to youth unemployment, bring
Wonderful.
the solution to youth
Wonderful.
lack of skills.
Wonderful.
So it's so very, very important that we have this, and this is our 6th one. So we are making so much progress with the youth and just educating them and helping them to realize that they are not alone. A lot of the youth feel that they are alone. So when we are here to them and we talk to them, and we don't want your problems. Let's give you solutions. Let's
Yes.
talk about the solutions. So you're absolutely, absolutely right.
Wonderful.
What I'm going to do, go ahead, Franco. You are
Wonderful.
going to move on to question 2, but go ahead.
On this sixth edition, let it be. If you see from the first edition, you will realize that the mindset is gradually changing, and the end result, the end goal of this is that we will be presenting a position paper to African diplomatic missions here in the US, and also plan to take these discussions to the homeland in Africa. I can't wait for the day, Betty, when we'll be doing this thing in Freetown live. I can't wait for it because our governments, they need to hear from the youth.
They do.
Right.
Kofi Annan said the biggest issue in any economy is to despise the youth.
Mhm.
So it's very, very important. So I want to thank each and every one of you who is here giving the voices, because it's going to go very, very far. So thank you.
Yeah, and I want to break a point that Betty said with the older ones in government. I mean, we have these old people and gentlemen in government trying to work a computer, and we have the youth on the street developing apps. Yes. Have no backing for that. And they're developing technology apps. Wonderful. And we have the ones in office that don't even know what Microsoft Word is. So this dynamic and this narrative has to change. So we have to make it possible to empower the youth so that they could see the youth in a different light. And that is what one of the purpose of this roundtable is all about. That's why I'm so passionate about it. I'm going to go ahead and move on to question number 2. And any one of the panelists just jump in and answer the question. One of the criticism of the SDG is it assumes a global solution to basic development problems without factoring the local context in achieving the 2030 agenda. And building back better, what do you think could be emphasized, the emphasis of the government in local communities in Africa? It's open. Any one of the panelists could discuss it.
Ms.
Okay,
Betty,
let me take
that question.
Hold on one clip. Okay. Go ahead, Sunnex.
Okay, I wanted to jump on it from where you stopped. For things to work, like anytime I'm talking, I talk based on what's happening in my community, my environment, my state, and my country. One of the major problems we face here is funding. All right, funding is a huge challenge in everything you want to do. Okay. When governments say, okay, there are grants, there are opportunities for people to get money to establish or do certain things, when you go to apply for such funding, the kind of conditions you meet, they are, very, very frustrating, and sometimes you just get tired and you walk. Do you get? So if funding can be made available for some of the things some people want to do in their different communities, you need money to work things out. You need money to carry out projects. You need money to, do different things you want to do. The kind of lifestyle you want to live, people can't do without funds. Do you understand? So if funding by the government can be made available with lesser conditions and, processes like the back and forth, if some of these things can be considered, it will be, a welcome development in a lot of communities in Africa.
So, but Sunnex, let me chime in there a little bit. When you talk about funding,
yes,
I agree with you, but to a larger extent, I would disagree a little bit. I think
okay,
I think our problem in Africa has not been the lack of funding. I think our problem in Africa has been a problem of implementation and accountability.
Yeah, mismanagement of funds. I agree with you, sir.
Yes. So if you cannot manage the ₦1 that you have, you will never manage the $10 million that I give you. So we must hold ourselves accountable. We must create institutions that are accountable to the people and not to the government. So go ahead, LB.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Aaron, go ahead.
Yes, so I just want to make three key points that we can focus on. The first point I think that government can do is to prioritize based on needs assessment. Why am I saying prioritization is very important? If we realize that our needs are basically quality education, then that should be a priority. Yeah. That should be a priority. Because you cannot develop a community without doing a proper diagnosis assessment of those needs. It's very important. In any development sector or in any development practice, the first important thing is identifying the needs of the people. Now, in contextualizing SDGs, you need to look at the local needs as well as the global needs. The local needs, if it's a challenge, has to do with quality education. The first question is, what kind of education are they providing? What are the contents? Are they quality content? In terms of teaching and learning, are they proper implementation of teaching and learning practices? These are the things that we need to identify. And then based on those needs, government will prioritize how the funding should be implemented. That's number one. Number two, I think we should look at private-public partnership, what we call PPP, because government alone cannot implement the SDGs effectively without the support of the private sector, civil societies, and NGOs. I'm sure it's already ongoing, but then when we talk about PPP, we're looking at resources, we're looking at building capacity, we're looking at strategies, and also looking at building synergy that can help to able to facilitate the implementation of the SDGs in those communities or in those regions where we are implementing. For example, in Ghana, we have a decentralization system where the governance system is decentralized from the regional to the local to the communities and to the districts. And this system is a governance system that is already existing. So government can also look at this existing structure and implement the SDGs through those decentralization systems so that development will not be centered in only the national level, but it goes through all these communities where the structure already exists. So I think that partnership is very key. The final point I want to raise has to do with the issue of ensuring that young people are part of the decision-making process. The reason why I'm saying that is because majority of the population are young people, especially in Ghana. Almost 60% of our population are young people. So if you want to do a proper implementation, you cannot take them out of the decision-making process. Mm-hmm. And if I say decision-making process, I'm talking about local, regional, and national level, where young people are part of the process of taking decision and part of the implementation. So the sense of belonging, the sense of realize that this is a need that we need to all be part of, will be part of their thinking process. So I think that these 3 or 4 key points I've raised should be looked at critically and see how best we can work together on that.
Well, wonderful, Aaron. Wonderful, Aaron. And I think you hit home a very important point. See, development is positive when it's from the roots, from the ground, from local to national. Because if you look at it, since independence, about 60 years, most African countries got independence, okay? There has been billions and billions of dollars pouring into Africa as aid, right? Year in, year out. But why are we getting poorer and poorer? Because there's a disconnect between the money and the people. And until we localize our development efforts, until we put in place the check marks and the benchmarks at the local level, we will never be able to develop nationally as a nation. So that's very important. Development is from down up and not from up down. Thank you so much.
Right. Local level, localizing the SDGs in your community, in your home community where you live, around the block, the people that you see every day, that is where you start. Thank you. Betty, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I 110% agree. I believe that aid hinders organize or communities, but I also believe that yes, grassroots work and needs assessments need to be done grassroots. They're not from top down, they're from bottom up. When you are being strategic about an adaptive challenge, not just a technical challenge, because technical challenges we can fix real quick, but SDGs are an adaptive. They are cultural, they are a change. It's larger than what we think. But when you localize them and you have informative key stakeholders in the community being able to address and tell you what their needs are, but then you empower them. You don't give the aid to the large NGOs and the large nonprofits and the government. You give the aid to those people. Think about just empowering a community of women, a community of women to build businesses, cocoa farming, trading, cloth making. All of these are large businesses that we actually don't necessarily think could change a community, but they can. Think about sustainable development. How do you sustain development? You pour back into that community. You pour back into that community and you empower them. And I think the only way, going back to that question, is building back better. What do you think could be emphasized, right? With the government? It is localizing. It is grassroots. It is taking your cocoa farmer, your ginger farmer, and bringing them and giving them a seat at the table. When it comes to youth are very innovative, and I say this laughing because I recently had a situation where one of my mentees got in trouble, but she got in trouble because she was innovative. She found her way out of a loophole. She got out, she did what she had to do. There are ways that we can strategically think about what our priorities are and address them by localizing and empowering youth.
Wonderful, Betty.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Go ahead, Franco.
Wonderful perspective, Betty. And if you're tuning in, we are live at the 6th edition of the African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable. This is an official site event for the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development in partnership with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the 8th session, which will be taking place in Rwanda, Kigali, from the 1st of March to the 5th of March.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move ahead. I think at this point, I'll just go ahead and bring in our first speaker. And then after I bring my first speaker, then we'll take another question. Then
Definitely.
Then you go ahead and bring in the other speaker.
It's just my pleasure to introduce this speaker. It's just been magnificent, fantastic, knowing her as a person and getting to know her as an individual and tapping into her passion and, tapping into her integrity and things that she do and things that she believes in. She goes by Dr. OJ, and she's the founder and the executive director of Honey Drops Foundation. And I'm like, Honey Drops, like, why Honey Drops? Well, that's her name. So she's a philanthropist, a public speaker, an educator, an entrepreneur, mother of 3, superstar, media mogul. She has her podcast, video shows, fantastic shows on Instagram and Facebook. But most importantly than that, her love for the young people, especially the women, is at the core of her values, the core of the things that she believes in. She's very creative. She's the one behind Honey Drop Foundation. I'm going to let her tell you a little more about her foundation and what she does, but I'm going to let you know Honey Drop Foundation is a global leader in providing real-time adaptable solution to end domestic violence. And when I was speaking to her about domestic violence, she says she's particularly interested in youth domestic violence. And I'm like, youth domestic violence? She's like, yes, Lady B. These young people are dating and being abused, right? And I'm talking at the high school level. And I'm like, wow, this is very interesting, because even here in the United States, this is going on. And she was like, yes. She said she developed this passion because she's an educator and she sees it. So she developed this passion to go and end domestic violence, particularly for the young girls in her community. So it gives me honor and great privilege to introduce to you today, Dr. OJ.
Oh my goodness, Lady B. I was like just sitting here blushing. I know I'm Black, but you can't see all of my blushes. But honestly, thank you so much for the privilege and the honor to sit at this wonderful table with these amazing global leaders. I honor each and every one of you, and I just say thank you for having me here today. My name is Dr. Oyinkansola Jinadu. I am the founder and executive director at the Honey Drops Foundation. I'm an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a speaker, educator, and several other things. But one thing that actually encompasses everything that I do is my love for people. I love working with people. I love just being around people. But most importantly, I love talking to people. And when I talk to people in all of the conversations, and I believe I have had a couple of thousands of conversations with a varied demographic of people, from young little babies to really older adults. Teaching with the Dallas ISD for 6 years allowed me to create friendships and mentorship relationships with 12, 13, 14-year-olds who are now young adults. And can you believe that these young adults still communicate with me, and I'm still keeping up with what's going on in their lives? Because I believe that every life has value, no matter how that life looks in the present moment. Never underestimate the spirit of a human being, because we have such adaptability to change and be better. And that is why the Honey Drops Foundation became a nonprofit. It started out as me just seeing a need. Being part of an urban city school district, I realized that a lot of our young girls had this confidence level that was really low to the ground. They had been told so many lies over the years that let them believe that they don't have value, they're not beautiful, they lacked confidence, and they never saw that they were able to come here and do anything other than be someone's girlfriend or someone's wife, or just be someone who just was existing, that didn't have anything to contribute to society. So I started out that first year in 2015 organizing a beauty pageant. And this beauty pageant was intended to raise awareness against domestic abuse, against physical abuse, against mental abuse. And after we did that very first event, which I self-funded because I didn't even know about the possibility of having people fund your event. So I went in and spent all of this money doing this very glamorous event. But I tell you that the feedback from that event gave fire and fuel to my energy. It didn't matter how much money I had spent on that event, because that was what gave birth to Honey Drops Foundation. And the following year, we went ahead, registered the organization, and set up our 501c3 right away. And we got to work, and we decided to figure out, where is our niche in this space? Domestic violence is a global issue. It affects primarily women. Those are the highest demographic of people that are impacted by this issue. But I quickly learned, being in the community and joining community advocates here in Texas, and joining the Mayor's Domestic Violence Task Force, and just getting myself into, the field and doing the work and learning about ways to offer value and resources, and now becoming that person or the organization that people are reaching out to and saying, this is what is happening. How can I help? I've had to meet a woman, a mother of 3 beautiful girls, who was a part of our organization, at a filling station. In the middle of the day, I was at my business. I shut down my business because once I got the call, let me tell you this, when you get a call from a domestic violence victim, you don't hesitate. You don't ask questions. You drop everything and you go answer that call. Because by the time that person is making the call to ask for help, they have gotten to the point where they are actually ready to receive the help. There's so many victims that people try to help them. Family tries to pull them out of the situation. They try to get them out and try to get them in a better place. But let me tell you, as a victim of domestic violence, it usually takes about 9 to 12 times for that person to finally get to the place where they are actually ready to leave, save themselves, and start over. So many victims do not make it out alive, by the way. The numbers are staggering. When we talk about the United States, we have about 1 in 3 women. And when we talk about Africa, we have 1 in 2 women. So 50% of the women, girl, child, women population are impacted negatively by domestic abuse. So when I got that call, I shut my business down. I drove over there. I met up with her. I took her wherever she needed to go. We had a conversation, made several calls. And a week later, she and her children were situated from a shelter to a transitional home and to her getting a job interview. And today she is leading one of the top STEM programs in Dallas, Texas. So I tell you that what we do matters a lot. When I give you a data statistics of what we've covered in about 5-6 years, we have had the privilege to serve over 3,500 youth in combination with the youth that we serve here locally in North Texas, with some of the wonderful youth that I had the privilege to travel to Nigeria to pour into and mentor and educate them and allow them to see that they also have a role to play. I tell you that all of these things all kind of work together to ensure that our mission, the mission of the Honey Drops Foundation, which by the way is to empower, elevate, educate youth and families. And you see that I put the youth before the family because the youth for me is our primary focus. The youth and the families to live beyond domestic, sexual, and teen dating violence. And I stated those things very slowly so you can understand that each of these things are individual social issues that not only affect our youth, our children, but every demography has different parts of this social issue that impacts them. But guess where it starts? It starts at the youth level, kids in school, with bullying, being in relationships that they're not even ready psychologically to handle. And they're being bullied and they're being abused, but they don't even recognize that it's abuse. Because guess what? Media, society has programmed them to see those behavioral patterns as normal. It's normal for your boyfriend to push you around. It's normal for him to be excessively possessive. And a lot of those girls will say, but doctor, oh, he really, really loves me. Oh my God, that's why he just wants me all to himself. I'm like, no, baby girl, that's not love. That's not love. So educating our youth to understand that these things that you have been trained from your birth to society nurturing you to believing that it's normal, guess what? It's abnormal. And that is why the Honey Drops Foundation is focused on the youth, especially the girl child. And part of our efforts allowed us to take that first beauty pageant to becoming our staple program. Now we turned it into our global youth ambassadorship beauty pageant. And we do it alongside a purple masquerade gala every single year, until 2020 when we had to cancel. But guess what? We're coming back in 2022 because we are now reopening our systems to begin to offer those programs back to our community. We hold these pageants to allow these girls to walk on the stage. We do it well. We train them. We have a pageant coach that trains them. We have people who donate dresses. We do so many things. We create this whole production for one goal and one goal only: to give a message to these young girls that they matter, that they are seen, that they are heard, that they have value, because they go through, they do their talent section, they offer their talent, and the winner has the opportunity or has had the opportunity in the past years to work with us as mentors to help them get into what we do. They get to work with the district attorney here in Dallas. They get to sit at the table and shake hands with the mayor of Dallas. They get to sit with council members who recognize them and talk to them and mentor them. And they get to be part of our youth council in Dallas, Texas. And that's the same thing we want to duplicate everywhere we go. And we're spreading this message to say, we are breaking the cycle from the bottom up. There's so many social issues that we can tackle, but we are focusing on abuse because we understand, being an educator in the school system, I understood that domestic violence is the #1 leading cause of why a lot of children perform poorly, have bad behavioral patterns, and have low self-esteem and several other issues that eventually, if not dealt with, these children end up growing into victims automatically. They will always attract the wrong partners. Perpetrators, they will be extremely violent in society. And then they will also become people who are they are predisposed to depression and then suicide. But guess what? I can keep giving you data and statistics. But the last thing I'm going to give you while I round up my talk is suicide is the #1 killer of kids ages 10. Think about this. I have an 8-year-old, ages 10 through 14. I have an 8-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, and I have a 14-year-old. But not on my watch. Not on my watch will any of my children become victims. But not only my children, but any other person's children that I have the opportunity to serve. Not on my watch will they ever become victims of suicide. If I can prevent it, then I'm going to do all that I can to do the needful, to help these young children to think better. So what are the solutions that we provide to them? We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. I offer them education. I inspire them to focus on education because that is the #1 tool that they're going to have. And I understand that the world is evolving very quickly. Education is no longer what it needs to be. And when we talk about education, we don't focus on classroom education because that classroom education has not done, I'm sorry, being an educator, I know that standardized education has done little to help our society be better. But we're talking about fundamental education from the home, fundamental education that allows them to learn skills to make them profitable in the marketplace. We allow them to focus on business, taking themselves as a full-time business, understanding that the way you structure yourself, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you're able to have a good structure, discipline, and routine in your life, allowing you to build a business around yourself as a person, guess what? You have a better chance of succeeding in life in whatever position you find yourself. #3, we focus on their spirituality, understanding that every life has value. You are a spiritual being. I'm not talking about religion here, brothers and sisters. I'm talking about you understanding that you are a spirit being and you have extreme value to offer the world around you. So do not undermine the value that you carry as a fully energized power beam that God has put on here. Finally, we allow them to understand the power of positive psychology. I have a master's in psychology, and I know the mind operates in wonderful ways. And if the mind is not protected and channeled right, it can always go far left. So we want to position our kids to know the power of their mind and to understand how to train their minds to think about success, to think about solutions, to think about innovation. Those are the solutions that we offer. And that is how we allow our plan and our programs to spread to so many other areas that I will later have the opportunity to share with you. But today we're focusing on the SDGs that has to focus on our girl child and our youth. And that is what I'm asking you guys to help me continue to spread this message all over the world. But not just spread the message, get into the game with me. Let's make all these programs bigger and better so that we can impact more lives. Thank you guys so much. My name is Dr. Oyinkansola Jinadu, representing the Honey Drops Foundation. And I don't take this privilege lightly. So I just want to say thank you as I end my speech.
Wonderful, 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 Dr. O. It was a great pleasure getting that perspective from you, speaking passionately about SDG 5, which is gender equality. I hear you talk so passionate, and it is true. No matter what development effort, be it here in the diaspora, be it on the continent, if we do not factor the role of our young ladies, then we are not building a sustainable culture. Right. One of the greatest things that I've realized in my own experience, is men, we as men, we have to also step up and lend our voices. On one of my roundtable I had about the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, Chuck Berry said one thing and I'll never forget. He said, male silence promotes female violence. Yes. And that is so true. So thank you so much, Dr. O. Thank you for that great contribution. I now move, if you're joining us, we are live at the 6th edition of the African Youth and Sustainable Development Roundtable. I now move to introduce one of the great sons of Africa, one of the most practical human beings I've talked to for a very long time. All he sees is solutions in practicality. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he told me, he said, Frank, let me tell you something. A lot of times we focus on what we want to do. We focus on what we want to become, but we never talk of what we have done, because what we have done should be speaking more than what we ever plan to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to bring to you Mr. Melvin Wajiri. He is the CEO of People Empowering People Africa, a wonderful vision for the youths in Africa. Life skills, provide them with the necessary tools to create positive change by supporting youth-led initiative with a genuine interest in social transformation. I have the honor most distinct to introduce to you Mr. Wajiri to this platform. Melvin, you're most welcome.
We're not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Excellent.
Excellent.
Right. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Franco. I mean, Lady B, I mean, it's just so amazing to see you, I mean, facilitating, and the other speakers. And I'm Melvin Wajiri. I'm the director of PEP Africa, as Franco said. Just to be brief, I've been working with nonprofit, with young people in Africa for 21 years today. And I'm present in New York to get my badge for the ECOSOC. And also we are members also for the UNFCCC, if you know, from the UN Framework for Climate Change. And we're also a core member of the Humanitarian.
You're muted again.
You're muted, Melvin.
Oh, please. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. It keeps muting, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would not want to make a speech, Franco. I want us to have a conversation around the Sustainable Development Goals, because
Wonderful.
I am really not very comfortable with speech making. I think because of my work, I've had a lot with little actions. But in all, I would say that we should be the pencil that writes the happiness of young people.
Yeah.
In their minds and in their youthfulness. And we should be the eraser that erase their soul. That is what we're trying to do in PEP. It's Empowering People is the name as it goes. It started in 2000.
Your audio is breaking up, Melvin. Your audio is breaking up.
It's breaking up.
Yes, the audio, yes. Can everyone hear him?
It's a little crackly.
Yes, yeah, it's really crackly, yeah. See, you can adjust it so that way we can hear you. I know you have so many important things to say. It's important we hear you clear.
You hear me now?
Yes. Wonderful.
It's better?
Yes, better.
Probably I need to
Okay, go ahead.
So we started in 2000 as a peer education program for young people in Cameroon. So we're using peer education as an effective strategy to reach young people with life-saving messages on how to avoid an exposure to HIV. Of course, within the 90s, HIV was one of the leading causes of death in Africa. So we're using the peer education concept to inform young people to make informed decisions about their life and the future. So in 2010, we transformed from peer education to people empowering people, living the same concept, because HIV/AIDS was fast fading and it was just like an ordinary noise that they make around. So how do we do something different after 10 years? So we created the People Empowering People. We changed the name for People Empowering People. Why? Because we want to give those young people skills and tools so that they can make informed decisions. They can change communities, not making decisions again by this time, changing communities. We inspire them, we educate them, we activate them, and then we celebrate them. We have 4 steps in our programs that we involve young people in. We inspire them by just talking. We educate them if they come to our programs when we have events. We activate them, we follow up with them to know what, from the information they got from our events, what they have done with it back at home, and then we celebrate their achievements. So that's how in brief, that's how we work. You know, now we are living in a dispensation where there's the whole technology. And we say that if we combine the power of technology with the determination of young people, you can revolutionize the world and you can revolutionize the SDGs. Of course, the SDGs is what we are centered on today. Our talking, how can we localize the SDGs in Africa? Of course, a lot of things is being done in Africa in terms of localizing the SDG, but little is being seen or is being heard of what is happening. You will see the technology. COVID is now 2 years. You will see how we have gone back. How can young people, which we know in Africa, how are they using the tech as tech save, so how they call survey as they are, how are they using the technology to create transformative change in society? Of course, most young people in Africa have WhatsApp, social media, they are present on social media. What do they do with it? The best they can do is to sell their body, do all what they are doing, stuff, wasting time that they have, productive time that they could do it, they could invest in doing something profitable for themselves. If Africa has the biggest youth hub in the world, then it means that Africa truly can really localize the SDG and can be a center for best practice in SDGs around the world. You agree with me that Africa, and if not the Congo, if you look at the Congo Basin Reserve, is the second largest forest in the world after the Amazonia in Brazil. Yes, somewhere in Brazil. Now, looking at the young people at the level of the Congo Basin Reserve, which goes down from Cameroon to Equatorial Guinea to Gabon and things like that down. This is a potential resource. How are young people tapping into the resources in the Congo Basin to develop green economy that are part of the SDGs, what we call the education for sustainable development in the SDGs, so that they can enhance themselves? That's a question. They have small farms. They have small, workshops or small businesses, but there is not marketed. How do we market those resources? How do we make sure that somebody in Kikakilaki or somebody is really can sell a product in New York, where I am here right now? That is what we need to be talking about, so that we can relocate or localize the SDGs and create decent jobs for them. What do we mean by decent jobs? Mean that they're working. Even if you're a farmer, you need to take time off to have your holidays. If you're a farmer, you need to have access to loans, of course. And if you're a farmer, you need to be able to market your product somewhere and to compete in market. In that, if we can do that or create those opportunities, we can relocate, or we can localize the SDGs in our village. I come from the village in Cameroon, from the Dunga Mountain Division in the Northwest region. It's very far. If I have to think about it, the miles, it's almost about 25,000 miles where I come from. But how can somebody in my village sell, I'm in New York right now, sell a product from that village in New York? That's how we should look at how do we locate the SDGs. How can young girls, as Doctor was saying, who is being assaulted as we are talking right now in my village, her voice is being heard in New York? Those platforms must be created. We need to create opportunities where the voices of those young girls could come up and they can also be represented in this in platforms like this here. We need to, as actors, civil society actors, as leaders, we need to create those opportunities. We need to ensure that young people have access to information. Access to information, they can make informed decisions. We have a system, of course, some, not all in Africa, maybe some parts, they live in Cameroon. There's what we call intellectual egoism, where people have information they don't share. If we continue this way, we can. It will take us another revolution to localize the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at the Sustainable Development with the advent of COVID, we are emerged now. We are submerged now. We are not emerging. In 2030, we will not talk about the Sustainable Development Goals anymore. We are just in 8 years. We are not going to talk about Sustainable Development Goals anymore. So what next? What are we going to be talking about? Are we going to set the new goals? And if we set the new goals, how do we measure progress? Those are questions that we need to redress and address. Then if you look at the sectors in terms of how economic empowerment for young people are, most of them function under the non-formal sector of businesses. Most of their businesses are not legalized. Most of them do not even understand the importance of legalizing the business. Most of them do not even see it necessary based on this government system that has been put in place, the complex structure of the procedures of getting it legalized. If we do that, if we cannot advocate for change in some policies that makes the environment friendly for young people to do businesses, it will take us revolutions to legalize the SDGs. Then if you look at the present context, again, in most African countries, democracy is not transitional. You cannot talk about the SDGs in countries where democracy is not as transitional. We suffer from transitional leadership. Leadership, one person will be forever, and you say it's leadership. You say it's democracy. SDG will never work. Those are the things that if we, as civil societies, try to bring the change that is necessary, looking at what opportunities do we have and how can we collaborate our efforts together to create a unified pillar to answer some of those challenges. It will take us another donkey years. I mean, maybe after 8 years, we'll still sit here and talk about what has been done, what was done with the SDGs. Of course, before the SDGs, there were the Millennium Development Goals. What were the shortcomings of the Millennium Development Goals? I remember if my memory is still very good, they go 3 on HIV, where they talked about the 16% Abuja Declaration and the 5% Abuja, 15% Abuja Declaration and the 5% Global Declaration of Commitment on HIV, which means that government should allocate 15% of the health budget to HIV and 5% of the national budget to health. That was not achieved. It was still broken promises. That's why they brought the Keep the Promise. I don't know if you remember the Keep the Promise. I don't know after the Sustainable Development Goals, what other things are we going to, I will come up from it. COVID is present. COVID is not, it has come to stay, and we're staying with COVID. How can a young man in Taku, in my village, who do not have a computer, who has never seen a computer in his entire life, who is maybe 25, and with the present dispensation of COVID, they don't go to school, they have to do online classes. It's a problem. Then we talk about how do we localize the SDGs. We need to look at some of the issues that hinders the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals and the readiness of the countries and the readiness of young people in positioning in the SDGs. If young people are not well positioned, it will take another revolution. Wonderful. It is important that young people are positioned in the SDGs. How are they positioned? Of course, there are platforms that have been created for young people to be involved like this, but in the context of this platform, what after this talking? What next? That's the question. What
Wonderful.
next? Is just going to talk and then we talk and we end here? Then it doesn't make sense for us talking.
Wonderful.
We need to do calculated steps.
Wonderful.
How do we proceed? How do we proceed with the position paper? And what is the impact of the position paper? And how are we going to follow up to ensure that the position paper creates the desired results?
Wonderful.
If it's just to send a paper to the embassies or diplomatic mission about what we want to do, then I think there are many papers in those drawer lockers and drawers around. There's so much.
Very true.
Which I don't think if we just keep piling.
Very true.
What happens from here?
Very true.
That is what is important. And
Very
how
true.
can we make sure that those who do not have access to understand even the Sustainable Development Goals, how are they informed? I remember I was talking to one young man back in my office, and I talked about the Sustainable Development Goals. He was asking me what was that. I was embarrassed because I thought, I was assuming that he knows, but I did not know that he doesn't know about it. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Because it's not popularized in country. Education is important, but education will accompany a lot of small interrelated activities to inspire young people to be involved in the process of the Sustainable Development Goals, and which is important. That's why in PEP, we want young people to be involved in the flagship programs in the United Nations to ensure that they come to here in New York, where they make policies and talk about.
Yeah.
They should be represented. Not only represented, they should be engaged in the process, meaningful engagement in the process, and they should have enough resources that can enable them to create. They can enable them to continue.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
And that's a great point. And I want to point out that not only does Franco and I hold this roundtable, but we also hold a Learn to Teach the SDG initiative class.
Yep.
Since 2018, we have graduated over 2,000 students,
Wonderful.
certificate students from our class. So we also took it upon ourselves to teach the SDGs, not only teach them, but we teach them how to teach the SDGs. And we
Wonderful.
have over 200 SDG ambassadors and
Wonderful.
over 100 SDG teaching ambassadors. So we realized that there was a loophole, that a lot of people did not know about the SDGs, especially our youth in the continent. So we decided to do these classes, and we are starting back in March to do these classes to teach more. We hope to do at least 10,000 this year. I know it's ambitious, but that's our goal, to reach 10,000 students. And we're talking students all the way around the world, Indonesia, China, some of the islands, Trinidad, Caribbean islands, Africa. So it's just not limited. We have a worldwide student body, which is, very impressive. So you're absolutely right. The education about the SDGs is very important. Did
Wonderful.
you know, Aaron, that Ghana is the hub for the SDGs, that your president is the chairman for the SDGs
In Africa.
And when I
Yes.
speak to a lot of people, when I speak to a lot of people in Ghana, they didn't realize that,
Yeah.
right? Or they didn't even have an office available to address the SDGs in
Wonderful.
Ghana,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
there's an
that
office for
is
the
an-
president. Yeah.
Yes, it's an office of the president, but for the
Yeah.
regular people to go and address the SDGs.
Wonderful.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
these are loopholes
Wonderful.
that we have to address.
Good.
Thank you, Aaron.
And Lil B, thank you so much, Mervyn. Thank you so much for that talk. I think your message went very far and deep. Moving forward, it is our hope that after presenting a position paper to the embassies here, through the embassies, we'll take these discussions to the continent in Africa. And in that process, we will also engage the multinational corporations on their corporate social responsibility. So when we have these summits, we will also have one day set aside for career networking, where we'll have these companies come there and take young interns to mentor them, because mentorship is the greatest part of the youth unemployment in Africa. So Mervyn, you're right. When we drop papers in Washington, it's just another paper. What do we do after? So it is our wish that we take these discussions to the continent and create local action that will be able to empower the young people on the ground. So it is not just talk. Thank you so much, Mervyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will next, Itah, do you want to say something real quick? We're running out of time. You want to say something real quick? Then I jump with the next question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about what Dr. Uche was, talking about girls, empowering girls and all that. Like in Nigeria, in 2019, I started up a campaign. Now people leave different parts of Nigeria. They come to Lagos. Lagos seems to be like the commercial city of Nigeria.
Yeah.
And people come, with different intentions. I came here to make a better life for myself. That's why I left Benue State, which is my home state. And then I noticed a lot of these young girls from Benue State, because I wanted to do something for at least to impact those that were directly from my community.
Okay.
And I started going around Lagos, and there's a busy place called Allen. All right.
Yeah.
And you see all these girls at night from 9 p.m. till like about 2 a.m., 4 a.m. They come there, you see them dressed half naked, and then, men come pick them up and then sleep with them and pay them. I was really touched. That's one. Then I started making research, move around town, ask questions and all that. The ones that couldn't do such businesses, they were engaged in, there's this thing they call house girl chores. They work as maid in different homes and then they get paid. Now, it's a way to survive, right? But at the same time, I just felt like, okay, these kids, by the time you're doing this thing, don't remain yourself in that menial job you're doing. Think about, okay, what's my future going to be like? The money I'm making from this business, I got to put it together to learn something or to go to school.
Wonderful.
That was the campaign. That was the campaign I started in 2019.
Wonderful.
And then I got like about 63 of them, and I engaged them for like about 12 weeks, Saturdays, weekend. And then we had them taught different handmade crafts. And then an expert came because I actually partnered with some foundations, and then they came to teach them digital marketing. All right.
Wonderful.
Because I just saw it to be like, okay, you learn a skill and you can't market what you've learned, it's totally useless.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So we engage them and let them understand they can use the internet to do a lot. You don't just go on social media. You don't just go on social media. Yeah.
Well, wonderful, Itah. It's always very important for us to understand the skills. Skills is the most important thing. Without skills, there's no way we'll develop without skills. And that is why on our last roundtable, our keynote speaker, he said, entrepreneurship in Africa should be a basic human right. And I agree with him completely.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm gonna. So thank you so much, Itah. I'm gonna move on because of time constraint. Let me move on to introduce our last panelist who just joined us. Please help me welcome Dr. Abigail Wilson. Dr. Abigail Wilson is a young, pragmatic lady from Ghana who's based here in the United States. She's a certified, registered clinical pharmacist with a doctorate in pharmacy from the University of Findlay in Ohio. Dr. Wilson has a certification in business analytics from Harvard University. She serves as a UN online volunteer and is a founder of Dreams Vision Future, a nonprofit that provides scholarships to high school students across Africa. Dr. Abigail, welcome to the platform, and how you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know you were running late from another function, but you can see our great panelists from our two speakers. We have had a great time. The meeting is going good so far. So I'm going to start the next question right with you, Dr. Abigail.
Okay.
I think our problems in Africa is not a lack of will, but it's just the lack of how. Okay?
Yeah.
Most African optimists, they say that our educational system needs to be revamped to lay more emphasis on technical education, vocational education, and entrepreneurship. They say we have had too much doctors, but no progress. Dr. Abi, what's your take on this?
That's a very good question. It's so good to be here.
Wonderful.
I don't really think the issue is lack of entrepreneurs or vocational education, because if you look at my generation right now, most young people are into entrepreneurship, actually. People in YouTube videos, TikTok videos. So I think the biggest barrier is lack of access to resources, right?
Okay.
I have worked with young engineering students from Ghana that graduated from one of the top engineering schools called Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. They got out as engineers, and they wanted to solve one of the SDG goals, which is the water sustainability project. And this project, they came up with a device, and that device helps to save 2.3 million liters of water every month. And this is water that is lost through the use of poly tanks, boreholes and stuff like that, right? Now, the issue here was they came out with this device. They came out with this idea to solve problems in society, to become entrepreneurs, to have a major impact. But they had no idea where to go. So lack of information, lack of access, lack of resources, lack of mentorship, like you mentioned, right? So people that want to tap into entrepreneurship, they don't have information on where to go, access to capital, right? The banks in Ghana are not willing to take a chance on the youth when it comes to entrepreneurship. Whereas you and I know here in America, when I graduated from university here in America, I started my own vitamins business, okay? And I was able to do that because there were access to capital. My bank was work with me. So I was able to do that, right? But how many young people in Ghana or in Africa can actually walk into a bank and say, I just graduated, I have this idea, I have tested it, I will need support or resources to make it happen? It's inconceivable. The banks wouldn't do that. So I think we need to focus on the resources part, because they have brilliant ideas. The young people on the continent, they have brilliant ideas, brilliant problem-solving skills, but they lack access to capital and resources to help develop those talents. So that's the issue. The issue is not a lack of vocational training or innovative skill. No, they have it all. They have it all. And I'll give one last example. When COVID happened, I worked together with some of the youth in Ghana to build a COVID testing booth, because there was lack of PP something. I don't remember the word. Yeah. There was lack of that all over the world. So what most hospitals globally were doing was they will build a COVID testing booth. That way they can just test people in the testing booth in and out without having the gown, because there was shortage of that gown that healthcare providers had to. So I gathered some few youth in Ghana, and we built COVID testing booth. They just built it with their own hands, and we donated those COVID testing booths to the 37 military hospital in Ghana.
Wow.
We did that, and I funded that project. So my whole point is, when we built that testing booth, we had phone calls asking us, did we import the booth? It looks really, I'll share that with you guys in the chat group. People were asking, was this made in Ghana? It was made right there in Ghana with young people in Ghana. We have untapped human capital.
Wow.
I'm willing to do the work. So Franco, the issue was lack of access to capital and resources to help develop these talents and entrepreneurship skills.
Wow. So very, very important intake, Abby. Aaron, let me move to you, Aaron. Aaron, do you think is a lack of capital, as Abigail is saying, or do you think that our education, that we have to go back to our educational system, revamp our curriculum so we can bring out more youths who are more practical and making stuff rather than waiting for stuff to come? What do you think?
I think I tend to agree with some of the points raised by Doc. First of all, we need to also look at the type of education that we have. We need to shift more from just providing theoretical approach to learning than to more critical thinking, collaborative learning,
Innovation.
more of solution-based,
Good.
lifelong learning approach, because the world is changing and learning has become more of like very agile. So we need to look at the content and the delivery. That's number one, to address the issue of young people coming out only to be well-trained in terms of theory, but then when it comes to practicality and implementation of solving problems, they have challenges. So for instance, I had an opportunity to be at the school where I was trained by a Swedish company in Ghana to develop softwares. And I realized that the model by which they teach is quite different from what I was taught when I was in university in Ghana.
Wonderful.
And the reason is because we were taught to identify challenges in the community and develop softwares that can solve them. So it was not a normal theoretical approach, but both the hard work, the hard skills and the soft skills. So we need to look at that one. The issue of access to funding, and it's one of the biggest problems we that need to be addressed in Ghana, especially with regards to having access to funding. A lot of young people have the ideas, but the banks has a policy where they require certain guarantee. Because they think young people are high risk and they may not be able to pay back in terms of, yes. So the issue of accessibility of funding has become an issue, but the government is looking at a policy where they have a social enterprise and venture capitalist approach where they can fund this kind of small businesses. So we have SMEs that have been supported by certain private sectors. For instance, Vodafone Foundation has a project that takes care of SMEs, that young people have ideas that they want to implement. Certain private organizations also have certain aspect of funding available for that. But one other thing is that a lot of young people doesn't also know that this information are available. You know, some of them doesn't know. They have the idea, but some of them do not have fair idea about how to access this funding. For instance, if you ask most young entrepreneurs whether we have angel capitals in Ghana or angel funding in Ghana, they don't have idea. Some have, others don't have. So we need to also create that information and make them available to these young people to be able to access them. And the final point I want to make is we need to build capacity such a way that young people can be on their own without depending on government. Because most of people, when they finish university, the first thing they're looking out for is for a job. So what happens if you don't get a job? So the idea of changing that mindset to create your own thing should start from right from the basic primary school to the university, where young people can create their own ideas, and then when they come out of the university, come out of the school, they can implement them and develop partnership to be able to solve problems in our communities. So I think
wonderful perspective. Wonderful perspective, Aaron. I think we have just 10 minutes to wrap up. Dr. O, let me give you a minute, and so we can move on fast. Go ahead, Dr. O. Your hands up.
Yes, real quick, just what I wanted to say is to contribute to support what my other panelists have spoken about is we have to change how we're educating our kids in the school. Kids are not taught to think, they're taught to pass a test. And I know that because I'm an educator, I've been, and I still am. So being in the school system here in the US gives me a different perspective. And even growing up in Nigeria, so giving me that global perspective was, I learned in Africa, now I'm teaching in America. How we teach our kids is very important. We need to change all of that. We need to develop critical thinking students, not test-taking students. That's what we do. Yes.
Wow, wonderful. Critical, Lady B, that's a take home. We need to develop critical thinking students rather than test passing students. Wow, Dr. O, that was so powerful. That was so powerful. Hey, Betty.
And it's very stressful with the test passing student because that's their whole.
So let's hear from Betty. So Betty, are you still with us, Betty?
Yes.
Wonderful. You can meet Betty. So see, Betty, I think one of the most important things here, Betty, listening to all of us speak here, I think there's one key component we all have to accept, that the government somehow has to create the enabling environment, right? One of the problems of youth unemployment in Africa is that our youth do not have a place, a central location where they could go and tap resources. I always say China in 30 years was able to uplift 800 million youths out of poverty in 30 years. And China is now the manufacturing destination of the world. They did that with heavy concentration in technical education, okay? China, they have what the government came out with 20 years ago. They came out with something they call the Taobao villages, right? Taobao villages, they are like digital centers. They have about 4,000 of them in villages in China, where about 100 businesses, 100 youths who want to start a business, they will go and use that center. It has internet, there's a library, it has a mentorship where business people in the community, they come there and they mentor them. The government provide little resources. And guess what? That's why we were able to raise close to about 5 million millionaires in China. So what we are saying is that our governments do need to play their part. They need to create this enabling environment for our youth to strive. So Betty, do you think that our educational system as it is a problem, or do you really think is a lack of funding for in order as we build back better against COVID?
I think it's two parts.
Okay.
So our educational system is, and I have to say this, and Dr. J, you can help me with this, but I do think that when it comes to the reality of life and navigating life, our educational system does a poor job in building that resiliency in a lot of us. And me particular, I experience, everybody tells you, go to school, but they don't tell you what makes a career, what makes a thriving business, what makes you an entrepreneur, what makes you be able to navigate financial woes, economic stability. They don't teach you about that access points. Where can you gain knowledge? Where can you go for healthcare? Where can you go for social community context?
Wonderful.
And so what happens is, like Dr. J said, it teaches you to pass a test, but it does not give us the platform to become greater and better. One of the things that I do admire about China is because any money that they make, they invest back into themselves, right?
Yes.
Any money that we receive as African nations, it doesn't trickle down, it stays up top.
Yes.
You can always tell there is a large gap, right? Yes. Between impoverished and the wealthy. There is a large gap. You see it day to day. Why is it that we don't take our money and reinvest it back into ourselves? Instead, we invest back into China. We invest back into other nations. And so when it comes to the educational system and pouring resources into the educational system, we don't do that. Paying school fees is one thing, but could you imagine if we did have socialized medicine in Africa, if we did have socialized education where we don't have to pay?
Yep.
Could you imagine if everyone was on the same platform and you received the same amount of education, top tier schools, education, everybody would have a better start. So I think that it's a two-part. There's funding. There is also the behavioral context, the cultural context,
Wonderful.
but there's also who are we creating? Youth, empowering youth is one thing, but you have to also understand the type of society that we're creating with globalization of technology. Technology brings us together and has been making a lot of youth smarter. But one of the biggest things is, take for instance, Bitcoin. How many of you can say you actually have researched and invested in Bitcoin?
Wonderful.
Crypto. It's a risky situation, but the education behind it, is what we could be actually utilizing and empowering youth to become entrepreneurs, to be able to seek finances and funding to do all the work that they want to do. So I feel like it's a two-part.
Wonderful perspective. Every opinion respected. And that is why we say as Africans, we are the most adaptive, because we've been through the good, we've been through the bad, and we've been through the ugly. But we still stay alive and we still stay hopeful that God will do it for us. Let me hear from Sunnex. Do you have? I know you already talked about this, Sunnex. You already talked about this. You already stressed the importance of skills training. You already stressed the importance of entrepreneurship. 1 minute for you, and then we'll go back to Aaron. Go ahead, Sunnex.
All right. Basically, what I think here we should do in Africa basically is African leaders should the development in Africa should be based on impact, not activity. When it has to do with impact, okay, impact is all about, okay, how are the people going to be affected? Let them be affected positively. But when it's all about the activity, for political reasons and all that, like in Nigeria, you don't see our political leaders, like our government officials, you don't see them every day. Now, election is fast coming and activities are going on. Everybody's coming out to behave nice and talk well. So we could feel them like, okay, they're actually going to do the nice things, but we know them already. So if someone is contesting an election, for instance, and you're coming out genuinely like, okay, you want to make impact, then things will change. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much, sir.
Wonderful, Sunnex. Wonderful, Sunnex. And Sunnex, I hope when I come to Lagos, I can come to your shop so you can teach me how to make those shoes.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you so much. So, Aaron, back to you. Aaron, do you think the situation in Ghana?
Just a quick one. I wanted to emphasize on a certain point that now education is now moving more into not only the formal setting, but the non-formal and informal approach. For instance, we are used to the classroom settings and the things that we are taught in the classroom, but we can also learn by experience and we can also learn by observation. So for instance, in Ghana, one of the things I wish we could focus much on is the idea of having mentorship who have gone through the process of making impact in the lives of people that we can learn from and attach ourselves to so that we can learn from them instead of the normal classroom settings kind of learn. So I wanted to focus on that one too, because it is important that a lot of young people come up with ideas, but they don't know how to implement it because there's no mentorship and there's no experience that they've acquired over the period that they can help them to be able to implement the ideas that they have. So the learning should also translate from the formal settings to the informal and the non-formal approach.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mentorship is very, very important. And that's why, like in our organization, Bright Light Projects, we have a program called Adolescent Youth Leadership and Mentorship Program, where we start from senior secondary 1 all the way, by the time you leave high school, because our problem, like we say in Africa, is not a lack of what, is the lack of the how. So thank you so much, Aaron. And the Lady B, I think we have 5 minutes, so we can round up this. Lady B, 5 minutes. So let's just have 1 minute last call, and then so we can wrap up. Let's start with you, Abby. 1 minute so we can wrap up.
All right, I'm gonna make it quick. So this is a question that I'll leave you guys with, right? What has the leadership in Africa done with the youth that are into entrepreneurship so far? What have they done with them? What has been the results of their impacts in regards to those youth? Nothing. We see so many youth in fintech, and these people are being funded by Silicon Valley. They're not being supported by their countries. So that's something to think about. I personally don't, because of my experience working with the youth in Ghana, I sincerely don't think the issue has more to do with education, but the education could be better, right? The critical thinking skills, analytical thinking skills, problem solving skills, all those could be incorporated. But the question is, if you are producing so many talents and young people with entrepreneurship skills, innovative skills, and you do not create room and access to capital and funding, we're still gonna have the same problem.
Wonderful.
Yeah. If you don't, like, if you're not, I don't even know how to explain it. There are so many talents. There are so many people that want to do things, but they don't have access to resources. So we can produce as many educated problem-solving skills youth, but if we're not intentional about creating a hub, access, resources, so that these educated folks with critical thinking skills can actually walk into those hubs and say, I want to do this. Who do I need to talk to? Where do I need to go? How do we come together and work as a team and make it happen? If we are not intentional about those things, we can produce thousands of,
wonderful, wonderful, Abby, and interesting perspective. That takes us back to what Lady B said at the opening. Lady B said, we have people in government who are 80, 90 years old, cannot operate a computer, but outside we have youths who are creating apps and don't even have where to go. Right. So right. So in staying on focus on the topic, building back better, localizing the SDGs. Aaron, what is your conclusion? 1 minute, please. Yeah, unmute yourself.
My conclusion is that we need to build capacities, strengthen the local governance system, integrate that into our policy development, and engage the young people, let them be part of the decision-making process. And then above all, we should also make sure that the SDGs is well resourced and the framework that is being used is well implemented in terms of the direction so that we can achieve our objectives.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Dr. O, it was so great having you. One last word on how we build back better after COVID-19 and localizing the SDGs, please.
How we build back for me is each one teach one. Everything that we're discussing at this roundtable will not go anywhere if we do not figure out a way to duplicate ourselves. Every human has the capacity to add value and to develop something that solves problems. So each one teach one is my motive. When you talk to one person, figure out a way to deposit a little bit of yourself into that person so that your message can go further faster. Thank you so much and God bless.
Wonderful, Dr. O, wonderful perspective. As I'm watching on Facebook, someone said on Facebook that everything starts with leadership and ends with leadership. Great perspective. Miss Betty, one last word, building back after COVID-19, localizing the SDGs.
So the best thing I can say is we need to be able to get to the root cause and address our health inequities through social determinants of health, but also it starts from the ground up, grassroots, localizing, ensuring that we are connected. I think one of the best things with recovering from COVID-19, and as you know, I'm still heavy in working in COVID-19. This is an endemic. This is going to be here for a while. So how do we learn from why Africa has successfully not had high significant rates? That's the key. That's a key fact. They have not. And so how do we learn from those significant changes? It's because they have such issues with their social determinants, right? Economic stability, education, access to care, transportation. So now it's conducting needs assessments on the grassroots level to address that and build back better.
Wonderful, wonderful, Betty. Itah, wonderful perspective. One last word. How do we be back better and localizing the SDGs? Yeah, unmute yourself.
Apologies, please.
Right.
I'm sorry about that. Now, before now, these problems were actually there. They've always been there, all right? But COVID came and exposed more of the problems on ground, all right? But now what I'm thinking is we need to try as much as we can. I'm talking about our political leaders and government officials and every stakeholder that is involved in human capacity building, development, and impact in Africa. We got to do more, all right? More funding should be made available. Let's not make it a lot more difficult for people. People are going through things, going through a lot already. So if we can access some of these funds to push our ideas and our visions and the kind of things we want to do, Africa will be a beautiful place for everyone to come invest and work. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, Itah. Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. Itah. Let me pass it back to my co-host, Lady B. Bless.
Yeah.
Thank you, Franco. And I just want to thank everyone that joined us here today for your views, for your solutions, for your problem-solving ability, and to be able to discuss it here with us today. I also want to thank the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa for allowing us to have this platform to discuss these issues and bring light to these issues, give the youths on our panel a seat on the table and let their voice be heard. I want to thank our guest speakers that spoke so eloquently today to give us insight on what they're doing to build back better. I want to thank Franco, our moderator, who does an excellent and fabulous job in leading all the discussions. At the end of the day, building forward better, localizing the SDG starts with you and I. It starts with us. So we are the ones that have to take what they say, the horse by the reins, and start driving the SDGs on a local level on the grassroots level, like Ms. Betty says, right there in your local community. This is just the start. This is not the end. We will have more discussion. And as our guest speaker, Melvin, brought out, we have to take actions on these talks. You just don't want to keep talking and talking and talking. So at that, we're going to go ahead and close this roundtable discussion. We look forward to having so many more with the youths of today in the diaspora, as well as on the continent. So I thank you. I thank the UN, I thank the African Commission, I thank the city of Kigali to allowing us to have this discussion. Thank you so much. Franco, last word.
No problem, no problem. Thank you so much, Lady B. Bless. I've never seen a sister for the Caribbean. I think, Lady B, Africa is born in you. You were not born in Africa.
Correct.
To see such articulation and passion from you, it says a lot about how we Africans, we are adaptive, because we say, no matter where you come from, so long as you are Black.
I'm African now. I'm Guyanese. I'm a Guyanese Ghanaian.
So in building back better, I think the most important factor we should take home is about providing an equitable solution, right? Our solutions should be equitable across the board. Because if you believe with me, the SDGs or our national development indices has always neglected the rural communities. And that's why even the so-called aid that comes to our countries, it does not trickle down. And that's why the people on the local community, in our local villages, they feel so disconnected. Until we realize that we have to have those people and the local people as major stakeholders in nation building, we will never go anywhere. It was interesting, 2019, Nigeria imported what, about 22 billion in food. Nigeria has one of the best arable land in the entire world, but we are importing food from countries that don't even have natural seasons. They grow they grow food from incubators, but we have the rainy season to grow the crops. We have the dry season to plant the crops. Yet we are not able to feed ourselves. So our problem has never been the lack of the will. Our problem has just been the problem of the mentality. And that's why we're all saying, in order for the SDGs to thrive, we must localize it. We must make the woman who grows vegetable in the village to sell that vegetable in Abuja by providing her with a good storage system, by providing her with good transportation. That is the only way we'll be able to build back better. I want to thank the African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development in partnership with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the government of Rwanda for giving us this opportunity to host this as an official side event. To all of our panelists, this was the greatest, one of the greatest events we've ever had. We thank you so much. And please, we hope when we call you next time, we'll be able to come back and talk again as one family. May God bless you all. Thank you so much. And thank you. See you on the 7th African Youth and Sustainable Development, most probably with Dr. Abi at Texas A&M University. That will be live. That will be a live one, no more virtual. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.